This tape is very important because bodybuilders ignore the development of their calves and their forearms, and because of that, they don't develop a perfectly proportioned body. Forearms add power and size to your arms and are very important in a handshake and creating a sense of power. Also, your calves, if not developed, really distort the development of your legs and their appearance. So these two body parts are very important to develop. And also, what sets off your body is your midsection, a hard, taut, tight, muscular waistline. The champions will be telling you exactly how to accomplish these goals.
The calf consists of two muscles, one inner and the other outer. The outer muscle, the gastrocnemius, originates about the knee. The inner muscle, the soleus, originates below the knee. At the lower end, their tendons come together to form the Achilles tendon. The primary action of the calf muscles is to flex the foot, that is, to point the toe. Calves are among the most difficult muscles in the body to develop. For most of us, the calf muscles don't grow easily. In addition, many people have short calf muscles. A greater proportion of their overall calf length is tendon rather than muscle belly. The trouble many bodybuilders have in developing their calves is ineffective training methods. But if you follow the proper basic techniques for calf training, you give yourself the best possible chance to develop your calves to their genetic potential.
The gastrocnemius, the outer head of the calf, flexes the foot and the leg and supinates the foot. The soleus, the inner head of the calf, flexes the foot.
If you want maximum calf development, it's better not to work these muscles wearing modern athletic shoes. They act like springs on your feet, and the muscles don't do enough of the work. However, if you have very responsive calves, or if it's simply inconvenient, you can wear athletic shoes. But you'll get better results in your calf training if you wear non-supportive footgear like slippers, moccasins, or even working barefoot.
We'll be describing the principal exercises of these muscles in a moment, but some techniques apply to all. In performing any gastrocnemius movement, the knees must remain locked throughout the entire range of motion. As we've learned, the gastrocnemius attaches above the knee, and keeping the legs straight stretches this muscle to the maximum. This gives you a more complete contraction. When you do any kind of calf raise, come up forward onto the big toe rather than letting your foot roll over toward the other four toes. This is a technique that's always been advocated by the great champion Steve Reeves. Raising up on the big toe allows you to achieve a total peak contraction of the calf muscles. You'll lose contraction if you let your ankle flex and let the foot roll over to the side. Work through as full a range of motion as possible, going all the way down and stopping to stretch the calves fully at the bottom. Then flex the foot and go up as high as you can on your toes. Partial range movements aren't as effective in calf training. In normal walking and running, the calves in a partial range activity sustain your entire body weight for extended periods of time. Therefore, partial range calf exercises are not as likely to add significant calf development. After each set of a gastrocnemius exercise, follow this procedure to maximize the results. Hold on to a bench or machine for support. Raise yourself up until you're standing on your toes on point like a ballet dancer. This way, you're doing calf raises against only your body as resistance. There are no additional weights. The result will be total stimulation of your calf muscles.
The gastrocnemius, or outer head of the calves, attaches above the knee. You develop these muscles most effectively by doing your calf raises in a standing position, with your legs straight and knees locked out. This stretch position anchors the attachments of the gastrocnemius firmly at both ends and gives you the ability to achieve a maximum contraction of the muscle fibers involved. Many bodybuilders allow themselves to bend their knees at the start of the lift and then straighten them as they raise up on their toes. However, bending your knees lowers the intensity of the gastrocnemius contraction because it allows the tension on the muscle to slacken at the beginning of the exercise. Also, bending the knees involves the thigh muscles in the effort, which further interferes with getting maximum effort from the calf muscles. To maximize your calf training intensity, try doing calf raises without wearing modern athletic shoes. Wear less supportive footwear, such as slippers or moccasins, or wear no shoes at all. This way, the calves really have to do all the work with no help from modern technology. For most of us, calves are difficult to develop, which makes achieving maximum intensity in calf training especially important. So concentrate on locking out the knees, dropping your heels down until you feel a full stretch in your calves and a stretch in your hamstrings as well. Then coming up onto your toes. Feel your weight going forward onto the big toe rather than letting your foot flex to the side. At the top position, hold a moment to get the maximum peak contraction possible. Between sets, try stretching your calf muscles gently, which will make it easier for you to work through the fullest range of motion possible during your next set.
Some athletes like to train their calves every day, and they train with very, very, very heavy weight. And what can happen after a while is if they don't stretch out that muscle and take it through the full range of motion coming up and down during their calf training, they may have a tendency to get a spasm in the gastroc or in their calf muscle itself. This is quite painful. So it's very important with the calf to always warm up and cool down and slowly and easily, not ballistically, stretch that muscle till it relaxes again.
To be very complete, you have to have calves, which in those days, the calf wasn't as important. Everybody worried about their upper body. And the legs became fine, but now, without legs, you can't go anywhere.
The soleus muscle of the calves lies beneath the larger gastrocnemius and attaches below the knee. When you do calf raises with your knees bent, the gastrocnemius is relaxed and the soleus is forced to do most of the work. So the basic exercise for working the soleus muscle is the seated calf raise. As with standing calf raises, you need to work your soleus with a strict, controlled movement. Lower the weight, stretching your calves to a maximum. Pause at the bottom, don't bounce the weight up, come up forward onto your big toe, and avoid letting your foot flex to the side. At the top of the movement, try to hold for a moment to achieve a total peak contraction of the soleus muscles. Incidentally, many bodybuilders tend to neglect soleus training in favor of developing the larger and more obvious gastrocnemius. However, a lot of heavy lifting involves movements where your legs are bent, squats, leg presses, and deadlifts, for example. Doing these exercises, your gastrocnemius will be less involved than the soleus. So it's important to concentrate on sets of seated calf raises just as much as those in which your knee is locked out straight. Donkey calf raises are standing calf raises done in a bent over position so that your hamstrings are stretched to the maximum and remain stretched throughout the exercise. Stretching the gastrocnemius, as we've seen, gives you a more intense contraction of these muscles during the movement. When you stretch your hamstrings by bending forward from the waist, even more tension is put on the gastrocnemius muscles, which increases the intensity of your calf raises that much more. In fact, there are many old-timers in the sport who feel that donkey calf raises are the most effective calf movement there is, and that more modern bodybuilders would have better calves if they included more donkey raises in their calf training program. Donkey calf raises can be done on a machine, but there's a more traditional way of doing this exercise as well. Instead of a machine, you have another bodybuilder sit on your lower back, or really across the back of your hips. Looking at this exercise, it's easy to see how it got its name. It does resemble somebody riding a burro or donkey. Many bodybuilders prefer this method because having somebody sit on you like this gives you more feel than lifting against the dead weight of a machine.
My calves are genetically shaped, and also the thickness and the separation in them makes them stand out beyond other body parts that I have.
The calf routine. Standing calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps. And/or doggy calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps. Seated calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps.
You can train your calves before your workout or after your workout, but it's very important not to train your calves on the same day that you're doing your quad work. If you do calves before your quads, it becomes a weak link, and you lose a lot of your stability when you're training your quads, especially like in a movement like squat or a hack squat or a leg press.
Have a good diamond-shaped calf is very important.
The abdominal muscles originate at the bottom of the rib cage and attach to the pelvis. In addition to helping stabilize the torso, the abs have a basic function. They draw the rib cage and pelvis together in a crunching, short range of motion movements.
The rectus abdominis extends the whole length of the ventral aspect of the abdomen. It flexes the vertebral column, drawing the sternum toward the pubis. The external obliques bends the vertebral column laterally and rotates it.
There are a number of commonly performed exercises for the abdominals that are not as effective as people think. Take regular sit-ups, for example. In sit-ups, you keep the upper body more or less rigid and raise the entire torso. In this way, the abs are only acting as stabilizers and are not working through a full range of motion. The only true training of the abdominals is when your rib cage and pelvis are drawn together. The spine flexes rather than staying rigid, as in the sit-up.
The same thing is true of standard leg raises. Try this experiment. Stand up and grab hold of something for support. Put one hand on your abs and raise one leg. You won't feel the abdominals working at all because they attach to the pelvis, not to the leg. As in the case of sit-ups, when you lie on your back and do leg raises, the abs work primarily as torso stabilizers. The muscles you're really working in both leg raises and traditional sit-ups are the iliopsoas or hip flexors.
Because the iliopsoas muscles are involved in movements like sit-ups and leg raises, some people complain that these movements hurt their lower backs. The iliopsoas help balance the torso back to front, but the correctly done abdominal exercises work the abs directly and are the most important exercises used in therapy to recover from lower back problems.
So what is correct abdominal training? Any exercise that works the abs directly will involve a crunching movement. In crunching, either the spine flexes and the rib cage moves towards the pelvis, or the pelvis moves towards the spine, or both move together. Correctly done, the abdominal movements have a very short range of motion. The spine doesn't flex very far. Proper technique involves fairly slow and deliberate movements with no quick pumping efforts. The muscles are crunched together and held in that position a moment for peak contraction. The crunch is then slowly released under full control back to the starting position.
The The primary action of the abdominal muscles is really very simple. As they contract, they draw the rib cage and pelvis together. The range of motion of this movement is very short. All it is a kind of a crunch. You don't lift or derrick your torso up in the air. That action is a function of the hip flexors, not the abs. Your upper body rolls forward rather than sitting up. Crunches can be done lying on the floor, a bench, or on a slant board. You can do crunches with your legs lying across a bench, or knees bent with your feet flat on the floor. As long as you feel the crunching of the abs during the movement, it doesn't really matter. Some bodybuilders hold their knees in the air, but this isn't necessary. Lifting the legs is another function of the hip flexors, and working these muscles has nothing to do with abdominal development. Crunches should be performed in a deliberate, controlled manner. The harder you contract the abdominals during the movement, the more you're going to get out of the exercise. So when you do your crunches, concentrate on holding at the top for a maximum peak contraction, then lowering your upper body slowly back to the starting position under full control. With reverse crunches, instead of crunching the rib cage down toward the pelvis, you crunch the pelvis up toward the rib cage. However, the goal of the exercise is still to achieve the same thing as with crunches, a complete peak contraction of the abdominal muscles. Reverse crunches are not the same as leg raises. With leg raises, the pelvis stays flat on the bench and your legs are raised and lowered using the iliopsoas or hip flexor muscles. With reverse crunches, the entire pelvis is drawn up toward the rib cage and the legs simply provide extra resistance for your abs to work against. The extra weight of the legs makes reverse crunches more difficult than regular crunches, especially for bodybuilders with massive leg development. However, if you want to make this exercise even more intense, try doing it lying on a slant board. Bodybuilders do a number of variations of this movement. However, keep in mind that to do this exercise effectively, you must make sure you squeeze the pelvis up toward the rib cage and crunch the abdominals together. The scissors crunch is a medium-intensity abdominal exercise that allows you to crunch your rib cage down toward your pelvis and your pelvis up toward your rib cage at the same time. Concentrate in this exercise on continuous tension, full range of motion, and the full contraction at the top of the movement. Because you're not working against a lot of resistance, you can try going for higher reps and a really good burn. Crunches done in a vertical hanging position are the most difficult of all. Here you have the full weight of your lower body acting as resistance as you work to crunch your pelvis up toward your rib cage as high as possible. Hanging reverse crunches can be done using straps as shown here or on a bench designed to allow you to rest your weight on your forearms as you do the exercise. Either way, it's important to concentrate on bringing your pelvis up rather than just lifting your knees and legs. As with any crunch exercise, the pelvis and rib cage have to squeeze together in order to fully involve the abdominal muscles. Lifting and lowering the legs themselves does little to help with abdominal development. Twisting to the side as you do your hanging reverse crunches hits the abdominals from different angles and also allows you to work the obliques at the side of the lower torso. You can do a crunching movement holding onto a cable as demonstrated here, or kneeling on the floor holding onto a rope attached to an overhead pulley. Remember, that for most purposes, a crunch is a crunch, no matter what variation you do or what kind of equipment you use. It's the crunching feeling you get as you contract your abdominal muscles and bring your rib cage and pelvis together that makes any kind of ab exercise most effective.
One of the reasons why it's so important to wait till after you're done training your other muscle groups before you start to train abdominals, because the abdominals are needed as a power base for the rest of your movements. If the abdominals are weak, you may leave yourself open to injury.
The abdominal routine.
In setting up an abdominal workout routine, there are special considerations. When you do heavy training in the gym, you generally give your abs a strenuous workout as well. So the amount of ab training you do on any given day depends a lot on what kind of workout you've just been through. For example, if you've done a lot of heavy squats and leg presses, you'll find your abs are probably already tired and don't need that much work.
3 to 5 sets of 2 of the abdominal exercises, such as crunches and reverse crunches. Now that would be a reasonable workout. You could do more if you felt particularly strong that day. Really, a lot depends on how hard you crunch the muscles at the top of the exercise. By crunching harder and holding this peak contraction longer, you're going to significantly increase the intensity because you fatigue the ab muscle a lot more quickly than if you go from full extension to full contraction without putting in that extra effort. You should plan to do about 20 repetitions per set, less if you include full intense peak contractions. An exercise like the hanging reverse crunch is so demanding that many competitive bodybuilders with their massive leg development can hardly do them at all. Including these in your workout means your overall volume of ab training will be less, even though the intensity may be even greater.
The abdominals are just like any other muscle. I think that they have to be worked, in order to get the right look.
Would you work them daily, or would you work them at 2 or 3 times a week, or how would you work the stomach?
Again, I think that they're like other muscles. If you work them daily, you're going to overtrain them. Right. And this might be okay if you have an exceptional amount of muscle in the stomach or the obliques and you want to burn some of that off, then you can overtrain it. But I believe that training abdominals more than 2 or 3 times a week is a mistake.
But what you're really saying then is that if you are carrying excess, you're better off watching the diet than doing extra stomach work.
Definitely. They're two mutually exclusive things.
Crunches are scissor crunches. 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 25 reps. Reverse crunches, slant board reverse crunches, or hanging reverse crunches. 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 25 reps.
There's nothing like a crunch to train the abdominals.
The function of the forearm is to flex and extend the wrist and hand. Like the calves, the forearms are difficult muscles to build. But also like the calves, if they're exercised correctly, anyone can expect to make substantial gains in forearm strength and size. A limiting factor, again, like the calves, in forearm development is the comparative length of muscle and tendon. The longer the tendon, the shorter the muscle belly, lessening the potential for forearm muscle mass.
The palmar muscles at the underside of the forearm flex, abduct, and pronate the hand. The dorsal muscles located on the top of the forearm extend, adduct, and supinate the hand.
The forearm workout has only 2 basic movements, the wrist curl and the reverse wrist curl. Now the wrist curl involves curling the palm of the hand up toward the wrist, and the reverse wrist curl in which you curl the back of your hand toward the wrist. Your forearm training technique should be done much like that for calves and abdominals. You employ slow movements with a full range of motion and with a pronounced and sustained peak contraction at the top. Hold the muscle in a position of full contraction a moment before letting the weight down in a slow, controlled motion. Forearms should be worked with relatively high reps, around 12 to 15. Remember to use a weight light enough to allow your repetition to be performed in a full range of motion. You'll know you're getting a good forearm workout when you begin to experience a lactic acid buildup or a good burn at the end of a set.
Forearms, like calves, are relatively difficult to develop unless you are genetically gifted with highly responsive forearm muscles. Part of the equation is the actual length of the muscle belly. If you have short forearm muscle and relatively long tendon attachments, achieving really massive forearms can be highly demanding. The key to effective forearm training is to isolate the forearm muscles as much as possible. Wrist curls develop the forearm flexors. To do wrist curls effectively, keep your forearms flat on the bench so that only your wrists move. Slowly bend your wrists, keeping the movement slow, deliberate, and concentrated. Lower the bar as far as possible, pause at the bottom, then curl your wrists up as far as you can, feeling the forearm muscles fully contract at the top.
If you want good arms, not just good biceps and triceps, you gotta train your forearms. Everybody wants to see the forearms. It makes a nice, complete arm.
Reverse wrist curls work the forearm extensor muscles. To stabilize your forearms, place them across a preacher bench, palms facing downward, or kneel down and place them across a flat bench. Again, the key is to isolate these muscles as much as possible. Don't use such a heavy weight that you have to use your biceps to help curl the weight up. The forearm extensor muscles are considerably weaker than the flexors, so you'll find you're using a lot less weight with reverse wrist curls than with wrist curls. This exercise is the direct reverse of wrist curls. Using a slow, deliberate movement, bend the wrists and lower the bar down as far as possible. Pause at the bottom, then curl the back of the hand up as far as you can. Feel a concentrated, continuous tension throughout the movement. Quick and jerky movements are not recommended. At the top, go for a full peak contraction to put maximum intensity into the reverse wrist curl movement. Behind the back curls are a variation of wrist curls for the flexor muscles of the forearm. With this movement, you don't get the same feeling of full range of motion, continuous tension, that you do with wrist curls. But because you're holding the bar at arm's length behind you, you do achieve a great deal of forearm isolation. And a lot of bodybuilders like that feeling of being able to achieve an even more forceful peak contraction of the forearm muscles. Doing wrist curls with dumbbells allows you to work each forearm on its own, so that if one side is weaker or smaller than the other, it can be trained in isolation and forced to work up to its maximum potential. Because your wrist is not locked into one angle of attack, as it is when you're holding onto a barbell, you can pronate or supinate your hands slightly during the lift, which allows you to train at whatever angle feels the best and most reduces any unwanted stress on the wrist. However, unlike doing this movement with your forearms firmly against a bench, it takes a lot more effort to do the exercise strictly. Therefore, you need to concentrate as fully as possible on form, control, technique, full range of motion, and achieving the maximum possible peak contraction at the top of the movement. Reverse barbell curls is an exercise that works the extensor muscles of the forearms, along with involving a number of muscles that tie in the upper arm and forearm, such as the brachialis and the brachioradialis. Reverse barbell curls should be done very strictly with moderately light weight. Heavier exercises using this same movement, traditional power cleans for example, put an awful lot of stress on the forearms and elbows and can easily lead to injury. Instead, lift and lower the bar in a smooth, controlled manner. Flex your wrist up and back as you lift if you feel the need for additional intensity. Concentrate on feeling a constant, continuous tension on the muscles during both the concentric and eccentric parts of this exercise. Forearm routine number 1. Barbell wrist curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Reverse wrist curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Behind the back wrist curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Forearm routine number 2. Dumbbell preacher wrist curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Barbell reverse curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Behind the back wrist curls. 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps.
Pay special attention to what the champions told you about calves and forearms development. Remember, nothing sets off a strong, muscular body but a tight, taut, muscular waistline. Because if you do not have a strong, muscular, tight waistline, no matter what you do, you'll never look fit and strong. Power exercises is your next step in order to add more mass, more size to your body. There isn't a single bodybuilder, professional or amateur, who has developed a strong, rugged, powerful body without utilizing power exercises.
I work every body part as hard as the next body part because I believe that you're only as strong as your weakest body part.
You can get to the top. Just don't listen to what any negative people have to say to you. You know what you have to do. Just go ahead and do it.
The motivation has to come from within. I can sit here and I can say, honey, you're 5 pounds overweight, you're 10 pounds overweight. You should really start thinking about your health and about your look and about your heart and your lungs and about all that stuff. But you won't ever make a change in your diet, in your training regimen, in the way you feel about yourself until you in your own heart want to make that change.
You got to find out what works best for you. For myself, I found out that just being good wasn't enough. I found out that by doing a little meant I had to do a little bit more, and too much was never enough.
When you give your body what it's hungry for, it somehow responds in such a way, and it rewards you in such a way that you have such a great-looking body that you wonder why you did weight training in the first place.
I don't understand how a woman couldn't want to improve themselves physically. I think all women want that.
You don't need to go to the extremes that somebody like myself would go to. Probably, 45 minutes 3 times a week would be enough. The average person who just wants to improve their fitness and their appearance.
the shapelier I get, the more compliments I do get. Even though I'm more muscular than the average woman, it's the shape that's important, not so much the size.
You have to pick your rear end up off that couch or whatever you're doing, sitting there watching TV, eating pizza, whatever it is, and get up and do it.
That's the reason I'm into bodybuilding, because it gives me confidence and independence, and it makes me feel strong. I feel like I can conquer the world.
Bodybuilding in general is a great overall form of physical education. I myself, as a professional, took me a long time to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I mean, not everybody who starts bodybuilding is going to be a professional. It's a very difficult sport. It takes a lot of time. But you can, through bodybuilding, change your body to what you specifically want it to be.
Training, make it work, make it happen, it'll pay off in the long run.
Forget that television. Work out.
Bodybuilding is really a kind of sculpture, and anyone who thinks it's only about building big muscles just doesn't get it.